Hello, beautiful people. Kendall Hailstone here. Thank you so much for joining me today. It is day 15 or 16 of my 90-day video challenge, and I am learning and growing and hopefully improving and getting on the comfort zone every day, and it's totally what this is about, adding value to you and answering the question, what problems are people having and how can I help create solutions? And so today's video is about where do you start when you want to grow mushrooms? And so this is an overview of the first stage of the process of growing mushrooms. And so if that sounds like something that would be of interest to you, please stick around, and we'll be going into more details about the supplies that you'll be needing and the kind of basic overview of the process. I'll do a more in-depth kind of over the shoulder, more so just in-depth how-to video. I'm thinking tomorrow. I'm feeling inspired to start growing mushrooms again. I've kind of been on a hiatus for a little while just because of life and just a bunch of things happening. But my point is, I am feeling inspired to start again, and I want to take you on the journey with me, and I want to help you start growing mushrooms on your own, teaching you really what it takes to do that. There's a lot of videos out there too, but I also want to do my part to help provide value in that arena as well. So let's start out here. Oh boy, mushrooms are so exciting. There's so much to talk about. I'm gonna try to not make this an hour-long video. I'm just kidding, it shouldn't be that long, hopefully not. Okay, first of all, let's talk about substrate. Now, what is substrate? What does that mean? Substrate is just the material, the medium that is used for your fungus and your mycelium to grow on. I guess just to start off, I highly recommend that you actually make your own grain spawn, which is essentially a fancy way of saying it's just a colonized mass of mycelium. Well, no, it's a colonized mass of some type of substrate, and for simplicity we'll just say rye grain. That's what I use, that's what I would recommend. But yeah, so I would recommend making your own grain spawn, and this video is essentially a guide of how to do that, an overview of how to do that, and I'll make a how-to, so you can actually see the process with your own eyes, hopefully tomorrow. Okay, so what are the different substrates that you can use? You can use rye grain, you can use birdseed, you can use a bunch of different cereal grains, you can use millet, you can use brown rice. For simplicity's sake, like I said, I would recommend rye grain, but whatever really that you have available to you in your area would be a good choice for you. Whatever is economical, whatever you can get locally, that would be choice. I do have a link to some organic rye grain. Organic is keyword there. I do have a link in the description below to a 25 pound bag on Amazon. I believe shipping is free, and so that was one thing you need to take into consideration is shipping, when you're buying 50 pound bags of things. So that's one advantage of buying it on Amazon. It's a prime, item, so yay, free shipping. No, like yay, free shipping, more like that, right? So that's another advantage of getting it locally. If you can just go pick it up, that saves you on shipping right there. So, okay, so what is one of the first things you need to do when growing mushrooms? You need to get a good source of, like I said, substrate. So like organic rye grain is one example. And you also need a good source of spores or liquid culture. There's another, option of using an, colonized agar petri dish of mycelium, but let's not get into that. It's a little more technical. We're just going to focus on spores and liquid culture. Liquid culture is definitely superior, so if you can get your hands on that, I would highly recommend that. I'll leave a couple of links in the description below of some websites that you can find some liquid culture to a multitude of different mushroom strains that you may be interested in growing, like oyster mushrooms, lion's mane, shiitake, things of that sort. Those are pretty popular as far as things to grow at home. But spores are a good, I don't want to say last resort, but it's still a good option if you can't find any liquid culture. Liquid culture just essentially you can use less, it colonizes faster, and it's stronger. So those are some of the advantages. Yeah, like I said, it's superior. But you can still totally make it work with spores. I've used mostly spores when I've grown, and I've had plenty of success. I've also had plenty of failures, but I mean, that's just part of the learning process of really with anything, right? So once we have a good supply, or just once we have our spores or liquid culture of whatever strain that we're wanting to grow, we need to hydrate our substrate, our rye grain. For ease of reference, I'm just going to say substrate. And so you need to hydrate your substrate with water, and I'm not going to go into a bunch of details about that. This is just a basic overview of the process. I'll have another video of going more in detail of like how much water you need to add for how much volume of rye grain. We'll get into that later. But anyways, I know you are just geeking out just like me, wanting to know all the details right now, so I'm sorry. But anyways, so hydrate your rye grain, and then you need to sterilize it, because there's there's most definitely going to be dormant spores of other microorganisms that are just waiting to grow and thrive in that really amazing moist conditions that you are creating. But we want to kill off all other competition so that we can just isolate the microorganism that we want to grow and give it the best chance of success and growth, without having to compete too much, essentially. And so in order to do that, I would recommend putting your rye grain in glass jars. This is a quart size jar, 32 ounce, a wide mouth. You could use a regular size mouth too. I prefer the wide mouth. It's just easier to get things in and out. And then you obviously will, maybe not obviously, but you will also need to be drilling a hole in the top of your lids. There's multiple ways of fashioning lids for your jars here, but I just like the simple, the ring and cap. It's just simple. When you buy your ball jars, it comes with it. It's one of the philosophies that I like to live by, which kind of I've learned from permaculture more or less, is that use the resources that you have available to you. And so if you end up buying some ball jars, which I do have a link also below to Amazon for picking up, I think it's a case of 12 ball jars, and that should be plenty when you're just starting out. And I also have a link to a 1/4 inch drill bit that has a pointed tip, which is very handy, and that's what I personally use to drill holes. I use a drill. You can use a nail, honestly. You can really be as creative as you want to make make a hole in this top here. But I find that a drill is very effective. I'll stack like my lids, and I'll drill, have a clamp on them, and I'll drill through basically all of them in one sitting instead of having to do each one individually. So that's why I like a drill. So, and then you'll need some tin foil to put on top of your jar when it enters its sterilization process. And what that looks like is that, so you basically measure out your substrate into your jar, which you typically want it about like 3/4 full. You don't want it all the way full because you want to be able to shake it. And that's later on in the process. But anyway, so you fill up your jar about 3/4 full, and then I've heard mixed things, but some people like to put their tops on backwards. I've done it like this, where it's just the proper way, and I've had success using both methods recently. I should say the last time I was growing, I started inverting the lids, and the logic behind it is that it allows a little bit more oxygen to pass between the lid here and the edge of the ball jar here, so there's not that seal from the rubber, and just it helps with the growth of the mycelium, supposedly. That's what some say. And so the purpose of the tin foil is to actually keep moisture out of our jar, because once we've hydrated it, we have it at the proper moisture level, and we don't want our moisture level getting all messed up by getting any excess moisture in there. So the way that I have sterilized is that I use a pressure cooker, and this is a 23 quart pressure cooker by Presto, and it has served me well. I can fit 10 quart-sized jars in this 0.3 quart-sized Presto pressure cooker. It says they can fit 7, but I found that I can actually fit 3 additional ones on the top lying sideways. And so yeah, just to maximize your space there. And so for your pressure cooker, you use, I don't know if you've ever used one, but it was my first time using one with sterilizing this rye grain. You put water down at the bottom, you heat it up, steam comes out of this little valve here. Once steam comes out, you pop this on, and then the water's boiling in there, and it reaches once it reaches 15 psi, the pressure on the inside, then you set a timer for 90 minutes, and then after that 90 minutes, your rye grain should be fully sterilized, killing off any other competition in there. And then once it is cooled, you can inoculate it with your liquid culture or your spores. And that is pretty much the beginning process of what I wanted to share with you as far as where to start when growing mushrooms. And so you'll need spores, liquid culture, you'll need substrate, you need some jars, you'll need some tin foil, you need a drill bit or some other method of drilling holes, because just to allow a gas exchange, and then it also makes it easier to inoculate if you have a hole, so you don't have to take the whole cap off. That's really very convenient as well, because once this is sterilized, you really want to minimize any contamination components. So, for example, taking the lid off, there's a lot more air exchange going on here, and so a lot more likelihood of contamination occurring, whereas if it's just this tiny hole, it's a little bit less likely. And we can discuss sterile techniques also in another video. But yeah, so we have our substrate, our jar, like I said, our tin foil, our pressure cooker, and that I'd say is a wrap for this video. Just this is part 1 of a series, I'll say, and I just want to give you this kind of step-by-step process of what growing mushrooms looks like, and then I want to accompany this with a more in-depth look into how to grow mushrooms by actually watching me do all these steps. And so you can see what my recipes are, you can see what my process specifically looks like. I'm no expert, but I definitely have had some experience. I want to share my knowledge and what I have learned with you so that you can start growing mushrooms too if that calls to you. And I think that growing mushrooms is an incredible way to sustainably grow your own food and medicine. There is a lot of money when it comes to mushrooms too, so if you've ever considered making a living with mushrooms, it's definitely a viable option, and you can make a lot of money doing it, so if you do it the right way. Anyways, that is a wrap for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Please leave a comment and let me know if you feel like I missed anything important as far as the beginning process goes. Like I said, I'm no expert, so yeah, I'd love to get feedback on what you guys think. And also let me know specifically any information that you want to know next, or just anything in general. Just say hi. I'm sorry, like my mind's buzzing right now. There's just so much to talk about when it comes to mushrooms. I'm trying to just keep it like really streamlined, but it's really hard. So love you guys. Thank you so much for all your love and support. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Farewell. Peace.